Let's Find Out is a beloved episode of BoJack Horseman, but unlike many of the show's other most popular episodes, it doesn't seem to be beloved for its more profound or sadder moments, but instead for its wildly impressive send-up of game show television, all through the framing of a minute-by-minute live production. And though this is certainly my favorite thing about the episode, it also contains some great social commentary and wildly important moments for BoJack as a character, especially in the context of the show up to this point. So let's all ask that age-old question together. Hollywoo stars and celebrities, what do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out.
5, 4, 3, 2...
Showtime!
I mean, do you even care about this at all?
One of the primary escalations in this episode is in BoJack's reactions to being on the game show itself. As the very first guest in the inaugural episode, it should be a big deal, but BoJack doesn't particularly care about the show and doesn't take it very seriously. He outright says this to Wanda before the show begins.
I mean, do you even care about this at all?
Sweetie, no! I think this is stupid and a waste of everybody's time, but you're my girlfriend and I care about you.
But over the course of the show, the people involved in various games and events so specifically poke at BoJack's insecurities that by the end of the episode, he cannot help but care. When it comes to television, BoJack is used to the coddling sitcom framework of horsing around. He's used to stories that make him look good and make the audience feel good. It's the most gentle kind of television. Game shows, on the other hand, are inherently antagonistic to its participants. They're often intentionally putting contestants in uncomfortable positions with the potential for glory on the other end. And the moment BoJack enters the arena, he is immediately made uncomfortable. Even the transitions between rounds are inexplicably marked by horrifying shrieking noises. And basic conversation is turned into a game to play immediately with the small talk round.
Did you see the game last night?
No, I don't really follow.
Oh, so sorry. It says here you did see the game.
And then when the game moves on to rounds that at least make sense conceptually, like the general knowledge round, they make him feel incredibly stupid in front of the massive crowd and a national audience. The first question in general knowledge, of course, not being general at all, asking for the average annual rainfall in Bora Bora.
Just an average we're asking for.
I don't know, 7?
Wrong! So wrong!
Followed, of course, by another inexplicable, horrifying, shrieking round transition. And in that following round, BoJack has to choose between two obviously difficult academic subjects and one that is just specifically what Mr. Peanut Butter thinks about movies. The entire purpose of these opening rounds was seemingly to frustrate BoJack into getting upset and competitive on television. Manipulative tactics poking at BoJack's desire to be liked and appreciated, forcing him into a place of such embarrassment that he cannot help but care.
I'm gonna go with nuclear fusion.
Oh, the answer is Egypt!
Turn up the directional heat lamps. Oh yeah! Let's really make them sweat.
But even on top of the game specifically being crafted to put BoJack in these deeply uncomfortable places, Mr. Peanut Butter's banter and jokes as host are all pretty specifically mean to BoJack.
Quick impression. Glug glug. I'm not an alcoholic. You love it!
Mr. Peanut Butter seems to be under the impression that this is all playful ribbing, but I think rightfully some of these things went way too far. But it doesn't help that the entire game is set up to make BoJack look stupid in front of that national audience. One of BoJack's deepest insecurities, particularly the one that's explored the most in seasons 1 and 2, are about how people see and perceive him, hence One Trick Pony. And this entire game is basically built around jabbing at that insecurity, particularly when they introduce Daniel Radcliffe to the mix.
Oh my God, it's Daniel Radcliffe!
Not just belittling BoJack through the games, but pitting him against a much bigger celebrity who he couldn't possibly compare to, the one who has the kind of career and goodwill that BoJack couldn't possibly dream of. And so, after starting the show without a single thought or care about what he was getting himself into, he finds himself now caring more than he ever thought possible. Not about the show's success, but about himself in relation to the show. Not about how he makes the show look, but about how the show makes him look.
The puppets clap when the puppet master pulls the strings.
One of the most fun aspects of Let's Find Out is that it gets just about as close to taking place in real time as you could hope for a BoJack Horseman episode, with the whole thing being set during a live telecast of Hollywoo stars and celebrities' What Do They Know, Do They Know things, Let's Find Out. And as BoJack Horseman often does, they brilliantly parody and satirize the live television environment in a way that is both enlightening and funny. Of course, starting with producers and people in charge.
Nothing is more important than television, and no one more important than the people who make that television.
But even just the general atmosphere and energy of live television is so perfectly encapsulated in this episode. The hustle and bustle, the rush, the manic energy, the reveals, the surprises, it's particularly well conveyed in this first shot, walking through the backstage area as everyone scrambles to prepare for the big event. There are so many great details and gags here. As mentioned earlier, one of BoJack's first questions in the general knowledge round was about Bora Bora's annual rainfall, and you can actually hear a producer mention this in the earliest moments of the episode.
Did someone find out the average rainfall in Bora Bora?
I particularly love that the tech director, the one who is listening to the director and running the board to cut all of the live shots, is an octopus, and I'm sure tons of actual tech directors wish they had a couple extra limbs. You've also got classic conflicting archetypes among the producing personnel, represented by Mia McKibben and Todd Chavez, two people in technically the same exact role, but whose journeys to get there could not have been more different, with Todd basically getting the job because he drives Mr. Peanut Butter.
Next thing I know, I'm an associate producer.
I went to Stanford. You know, next time I'll just try that thing where I'm a huge dumbass who just happens to be friends with Mr. Peanut Butter.
These two represent the kind of opportunistic hustling you have to do to make a good impression and move your way up in the TV/film industry, and how that can also pit otherwise well-meaning people against each other, this time due to J.D. Salinger's pen being on the line.
If Salinger gives you his pen, that means you're worth something. It means you're a serious person who's going places.
This is not only a great subplot with actual commentary on the industry, but a really well-placed story for Todd amidst his season of struggles. This was explored in the Chickens episode as well, but this season Todd really struggles to find his place and to find purpose. And for his newfound work rival to specifically poke at that insecurity, it's the perfect inciting incident for Todd to haphazardly try to take this more seriously as serious going places Todd.
I'm wearing Heelys. They're shoes with wheels. For efficiency purposes, now I can be serious faster.
Season 2 does a really great job with Todd's struggles to find purpose. They find so many ways for that struggle to illuminate itself across 12 episodes, often neatly fitting into the background of other stories. This obviously eventually leads to his induction into the improv cult, finding what feels like a genuine purpose within a group that matches Todd's inherently silly, fly-by-the-seat-of-his-pants lifestyle. Okay, Todd tangent over. If you look closely at the back wall of Video Village, you can actually see most of the big moments in the show are planned out on the wall on index cards, and I think this is the aspect of live production that they capture particularly well. This is a massive, meticulously crafted event. Every single detail is vitally important to have planned on paper in advance, and yet they also have to be prepared to see where the variables they can't control take them. Whether that's these hilarious little moments where Mr. Peanut Butter digs into BoJack a little.
When it comes to Bora Bora, maybe this celebrity should have studied Mora Mora.
Yes, Mr. Peanut Butter, go for the kill.
Or the bigger curveballs thrown their way, ones that mess with that meticulously planned outline entirely. The structure of this production was supposed to be introduce BoJack, humiliate him on stage, pit the audience against him, and then introduce a bigger, more exciting celebrity that everyone can cheer for happily, and make sure that the game is skewed heavily towards that new contestant. Even though this is a game show, it's basically a narrative script. Introduce a villain and then a hero to vanquish that villain. But when PC decides to give BoJack Mr. Peanut Butter's tell, it completely upends that script.
How the hell did he know that? What else does he know? Does he know things? Let's find out.
He gets a cheat code to counteract the way the script favors Daniel Radcliffe, much to his dismay. But BoJack, having been poked in all of his deepest insecurities, is now hellbent on upending that script.
Yeah, you know, you're doing great, but I'm supposed to win. That was the deal.
Ironically, this actually makes for a more exciting and dramatic piece of television in the end, particularly when the real-life drama between BoJack and Mr. Peanut Butter infiltrates the script, replacing the bubble round with a dramatic confrontation about past transgressions.
Should we cut to commercial?
Would Homer cut away from Odysseus' journey just as he was being enticed by the siren song?
I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Peanut
will
Butter.
never forgive you for
I can't
that.
tell you how sorry I am.
Let's Find Out is the 8th episode of BoJack Horseman Season 2, and it also is pointedly connected to the infamous 8th episode of Season 1, The Telescope. The first connection is pretty obvious. The events are actually directly referenced in this major moment.
You want to talk about the time when you, my good friend, kissed my wife?
No! Yes!
This is the big off-script confrontation that Hollywoo stars and celebrities embraces, but it's also a pretty massively important moment in BoJack and Mr. Peanut Butter's relationship, particularly when you compare it to BoJack's big confrontational moment with a friend exactly 1 season prior. BoJack spent years lamenting yet never acting on his guilt for having gotten Herb fired from horsing around, and while he and Herb weren't exactly on the best terms when his big scandal hit, they had been genuinely close friends for so long. He had this massive and immense regret because he did something to his friend that he felt was unforgivable. But here in Let's Find Out, BoJack is being confronted by someone he doesn't particularly like, but for something he did that is also nigh unforgivable. But before this, there was no real indication that BoJack felt any actual regret at all for what happened between him and Diane, at least towards Mr. Peanut Butter. BoJack did apologize to Diane because he cares what she thinks, but he also wronged Mr. Peanut Butter. And PB wasn't even really an afterthought for BoJack. BoJack only really realizes that he even owes PB an apology because he was confronted by him directly on live television. Though I do think this apology may have been genuine.
I'm sorry, Mr. Peanut Butter. I can't tell you how sorry I am.
In last season's 8th episode, The Telescope, BoJack also sought forgiveness from somebody he wronged, Herb Kazaz, and in that instance, after years of putting the apology off, Herb refused to forgive BoJack. It's that important moment where BoJack learns that life is not a sitcom, and that he can't swoop in at the last moment to get his happy ending, his closure.
I don't think we can just resolve everything cleanly in a half hour.
And while I do think, because of who Mr. Peanut Butter is, he would have been willing to forgive BoJack eventually, it does not seem like he was actually ready to forgive BoJack in that moment. But unlike The Telescope, this time they actually are on television.
These people want resolution, okay? So you get your little butt back on that stage and you resolve.
And so this time, BoJack gets the resolution that he is not owed, nor has he earned. A stark contrast to the season prior, one in which the pair literally kiss and make up.
Oh, if only I'd had a kiss cam for Catcher in the Rye.
I just find it fascinating that BoJack is once again seeking forgiveness from someone he's wronged, but is this time protected by that coddling sitcom worldview he was so reliant on, the one that steered him wrong just 1 season prior.
I want to feel good about myself.
Hollywoo stars and celebrities, what do they know things, let's find out, obviously did an immense job poking and prodding at BoJack's deep-seated insecurities, but in addition to the artifice of the show itself doing a number on him, so did his interactions with the stars on set. This is heavily showcased through his interactions with Daniel Radcliffe. As Daniel enters the game unbeknownst to BoJack, BoJack is frustrated to learn that Daniel doesn't recognize BoJack himself, despite the pair having had what BoJack felt was a very personal conversation in their history.
I gave you some advice. You said I was a true friend and you would never forget me.
And you said your name was Chadwick Boseman?
To add insult to injury, Daniel immediately recognizes one of the below-the-line crew members on the show and chums it up with them.
Hey, you were the second hairdresser's assistant on The Ellen Show about 5 years ago. Veronica, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How was your mother's party in the end?
During the show, Mr. Peanut Butter not only confronts BoJack for kissing Diane, but he also takes the opportunity to get answers as to why BoJack doesn't like him.
Tell me.
Because I'm jealous.
Mr. Peanut Butter rightfully points out that BoJack has more than most people could ever ask for. Money, a great career, friends, loved ones, and he asks him what more he could possibly want, to which BoJack is shockingly open.
I want to feel good about myself. The way you do. And I don't know how. I don't know if I can.
I think this is a pretty important moment, because this early in the show, we recognize these patterns in BoJack already. We recognize that this was his motivation for doing One Trick Pony, not just to help revitalize his career, but to make people see him in a better light, a light that he can't even see himself in. And while his initial reaction was of concern that it would do the opposite, it did make people think more fondly of him, and it made people like him again. It gave him his dream role, it made him relevant, and yet, For the first time since, BoJack is verbalizing that it didn't make him feel better, not about who he is fundamentally. And yet, despite this genuine admission, at the end of the day, BoJack gives in to his worst tendencies. Despite his own girlfriend begging him to end the show on a good note, for her, despite admitting on live TV that he wants to feel better about himself, rather than doubling the money for charity, BoJack risks it all and lets his resentment towards Daniel Radcliffe get the better of him, botching the world's easiest Harry Potter question.
Elijah Wood.
What? Oh. Elijah Wood?
I stay mellow watching Johnny two cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny two cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.